This is Nizam, and I'm from the Sparks team. Um, I've been with Spark Systems for some time now, and in today's session, I'll be focusing on a new avenue that we are trying to focus on, which is building a solution or an accelerator to help teams who use the Sparks platform to get started fairly quickly and deliver value as well. So this session will be primarily on the application portfolio management accelerator from the Spark Systems. Just as a heads up, we are working on more of such use cases, and your feedback at the end of the session or later on would really help as well. So what is that we are trying to do different? We've been always like a platform or a tool specific vendor. We've been always trying to build our offering so that it kind of becomes state of the art and it could deliver solutions for various purposes. It could be enterprise architecture, solution architecture, systems engineering, and various other architectural use cases. However, to get the tool in a way and form to deliver actual use cases always required some effort to start with. And we've been helping like several teams over years to get them started, but still there is a lot of other people who try to get started with the tool out of the box and try to do a few things, but kind of eventually give up and go back to a Visio or a drawing kind of an approach. So this accelerator is an exercise to give those teams a head start to kind of cut or eliminate a few weeks of upfront effort to get them to a certain point where they could start seeing value. And in that way, they would use the platform better and also be able to do it for the right purpose. So why we picked up APM, we've been working with quite a few teams, as I said, as part of the consulting practice, and almost every vertical in every country had one common problem when it comes to enterprise architecture, and that was APM. And this is something that we've been doing it again and again. So we thought we might as well standardize this and give users an approach to start, and then let them extend it as and when required. So that's one of the reasons we picked up APM. And for most of you, APM should not be an alien concept, especially with enterprise architecture. There are several use cases, but APM is one prominent use case that almost every company is trying to achieve. And it's mainly to create a holistic view of business applications so that we could eliminate redundancies, identify risks, identify cost of operations, and various other use cases. So APM, there is a lot of emphasis from the Gartners of the world and various other studies why APM should be part of the architecture practice and why it is actually benefiting the organization. And I mean, in terms of reducing the costs and deduplicating things that are kind of unnecessarily in place and things like that. And at the end of the APM, what is expected are some tangible visualizations and reports like the roadmaps or something that will help us increase ROI, like the Gartner's time analysis charts, or something that could give us a view of the total cost of operations under various lenses, could give me a management outlook for the business applications in the next couple of years. So there are some standard deliverables that every stakeholder or the organization or the sponsor who is trying to do APM expects. So we thought we would rather start from here, work backwards, do all the necessary bits and pieces that is required to get the Sparks platform configured to deliver these use cases. And that's exactly what we have done in the accelerator. I'm not going to touch on how to capture things or how to go about APM. That's not the scope of my presentation. Mine is more tool centric. What are the bits and pieces that is required to help enterprise architects to deliver the results is what I'll be focusing on. However, there is another session just tomorrow that is going to dig deep on how to approach application portfolio management. What are the best practices? For example, how to ascertain the total cost of operations, how to ascertain the functional fit, how to ascertain business fit. So those kind of APM how-to questions are something that you could look in this session or in other resources that we can share. But today's session will be only around what is required from a tool standpoint to eliminate complexities and help teams steer towards a specific goal or a specific use case. So let me start with Archimate. So, Archimate and TOGAF are the most accepted notations and standards for any enterprise architecture use cases. And we are like totally with the Archimate notations as well. But there are reasons why we wouldn't recommend Archimate as the starting point to deliver an application portfolio management. The reason is Archimate is more generic. There could be a lot of things that we could do with Archimate. Like it goes all the way from the strategy to the business to application to information to technology, and there are multiple dimensions of it. But that is really good. But what we are trying to suggest is a more focused business queries specific meta model that will help us achieve the intended results. And why is it important? I have personally spent hours together sitting in meeting rooms with senior most architects in the team discussing whether something is a function or a capability or a service, and this has never ended. And that's not something like one-off. I kind of went to the internet and found that's a common kind of a discussion that's happening everywhere. And these are things that we don't want to bring in a solution that we are offering. Rather, there are tested and proven ways to do things, and we will just recommend that. Bear in mind, we are just recommending. We are not saying this is the golden standard or this is what has to be done. We are not trying to suggest that. This is a recommendation, but we have done a fair bit of due diligence and thorough research to come up with this recommendation. So we are not going to get into discussions of this sort, and we are not an Archimate purist to recommend you what you have to do in your case. But what we are trying to do is to eliminate the paradox of choice. Like as you might have seen this already, like the paradox of choice. Like people think a lot of choices is better, but in reality, research shows the more the choice, it's less possible for people to deliver anything meaningful. I mean, this is like in a context of a purchase, only 3% of the shoppers even bought something sensible. And this study also says there is a sweet spot with the number of choices, and as the number of choices gets increases, the chance of you doing anything sensible kind of goes down. And this is exactly the rationale of what we have tried to do, which is to keep it simple. Sparks EA is in itself supports a whole raft of frameworks out of the box. It's kind of easy to get lost in the details and add to it Archimate and add to it TOGAF. There's just way too many things to start with. However, what we need is a use case based approach. You need to identify the business queries that you want to address in the first iteration. Again, I'm reiterating, it's the first iteration that we are talking about. You could always extend it. We are going to stick to Archimate. We are not going to invent anything from scratch. We're going to stick to something, but identify the use cases and define a meta model based on Archimate that confines to this meta model, confines to these use cases. And then we need to do some EA configuration like MDGs and profiles and validations and governance and rules to make sure the users are guided to do what we have agreed in the meta model. So those kind of configurations, if done properly, would eliminate all the noise from the tool and give users a very clean and focused interface to work on. And it's only after this step we need to look at building a model, and then comes the reports and dashboards and all the stakeholder views. And these steps, if not done in the right way, would result in teams doing everything in one go and kind of starting with a lot of passion, but kind of the steam kind of weathers down, and the whole effort kind of stops somewhere. So what we have done is we have done each one of this. We have defined everything that's required in each one of these bits and pieces, so that the users, if they have a configuration like an APM accelerator with them, they could just fill out an Excel spreadsheet that will try to get the details based on a meta model from you and import it into Enterprise Architect as applications and services and domains and roles and stakeholders, and then also build all the dashboards that's required for you. So all the bits and pieces that is required to go through this process has been built except training, which is something that we need to do separate. So this is what is in an accelerator, which is available for you to download and get started almost immediately. It's publicly available. It's like open source. We want to make it a community thing so that anyone could just download and get started with it. There's enough documentation and more if required available for you. So what is there? A well-defined meta model, a EA configuration, the data loading utilities to get us started from Excel. Of course, if you are an ambitious team, you want to plug it to your ServiceNow or any other systems, you can do it. The integrations are available, but we don't want to we don't want to spend any time in doing that as well to start with. The objective is to get you from not to some meaningful value out of the tool in like a matter of few weeks, after which we could do everything like integrate with ServiceNow or extend the meta model to add 10 more layers. That's all up to you. And we have also built a lot of the hidden gems in EA, what we call the hidden gems in EA, like automations to build diagrams. So if you, let's say, are trying to create 100 applications, you need to go and create 100 integration diagrams, 100 landscape diagrams if you have to do it manually. But there are concepts in EA like model add-in, for example, which could automate all of those for you, which will create your diagrams in a matter of few minutes. So we have created a template and a few examples to show you how to automate diagrams specifically for the APM as well. And lastly, the dashboards in ProLaborate, which are meant to be shown to the stakeholders. So if you want to have an application roadmap that shows how applications transform over the next 5 years to 10 years, or if you want to do a Gartner time approach or a time analysis to identify which applications to tolerate, invest, migrate, eliminate, or you want to have an application landscape organized by capabilities or domains, those are the end result of a proper modeling approach, and that's also pre-configured for you, so that when you import your data or when you load your data to the model, all these dashboards gets populated automatically. So that's the whole accelerator that we are going to look at in a little more detail now. So in terms of the first step, it's about identifying the use cases. And as I said, we didn't make up these use cases just by some guesswork. We did a fair bit of due diligence to identify what are the repeated and most frequently asked questions when it comes to APM. So these are some sample questions that we identified. And to satisfy these queries, what do we need from a modeling perspective? Like, what are the use cases for my Sparx platform? So we identified what are the use cases based on the business queries. And based on this, what we wanted to deliver is a meta model that will be able to take these use cases, implement it, and narrow down everything else. Why do we have to narrow down everything else? I'll just show you as we go through the meta model. But the identified meta model is a simple, like an application and everything around it. So the stakeholders, the owners, the organizations, the domain hierarchy that it belongs to, an application service that it provides or it consumes from, and the project that may be impacting this application in the transformation program. So we have purposely limited it to this. We could easily extend it to business capabilities. I could easily extend it to technology. I could easily extend it to conceptual data model. It's a no-brainer for me, but I didn't want it to get there because that will open up another Pandora's box. So we are limiting to this so that I could answer the business queries that we have identified in the first place. And we're using Archimate, but we are extending Archimate for a reason. Archimate is a brilliant notation. It shows a very business-friendly view of how to capture information, but it doesn't get to the metadata of these artifacts. So an application component is an application component as a visual representation, but it may need more than that. You need to have a life cycle, a data classification, a management strategy, an application type, a vendor. There's like a whole lot of metadata that has to go on each of these artifacts, and that's also something that we have incorporated into the meta model. And as a result of that, we have defined a profile that eliminates everything else in an Archimate and just lets us focus on these 7 or 8 things that we identified. And why is this important? Once again, I am not trying to say Archimate cannot be used to start with, but this kind of reduces the Archimate and just exposes a small slice of it so that everyone in the team could easily start using it and get acquainted with it fairly quickly. And again, why not Archimate out of the box? So if I want to just connect a business actor to an application component in Archimate, it will give me 4 different types of connectors in 7 different combinations. I'm not saying this is wrong. This is standards. Like you could do each one of this under various circumstances and various scenarios, but I don't want to get into any of this. What I want to say is an actor owns an application. So Philip owns an application, and that's what I agreed in my meta model. An IT application owner owns an application. So that's exactly what I want to do. And bear in mind, I'm not reinventing any new connectors here. We are using Archimate, but we're extending it to use a business friendly name. So associated with is the connector that we're using. Like for an Archimate purist who is here, I've always ended up in a crossroad with an Archimate purist. So I'm just trying to explain myself. We have used associated with, which is a catch-all connector. I know there are 7 other ways to do it, which we are not looking at, but to an end user, it's one connector that I'm zeroing in on, and that's all he or she will see. Similarly, an application component to an application service in Archimate will have 7 types of connectors in 9 different combinations, which is again something that I don't want to do. I want my application to either provide an interface or consume an interface, and those are the only 2 types of connectors that I want my users to see. So that kind of eliminating the choices, again going back to what I started with, like the more the choice, it kind of makes it complicated for people to get acquainted to. So we are just making or narrowing it down to choices. So this is the use of a profile, or also called as MDG in EA, and that's also something that's part of the accelerator. And then once we have these 2 steps, we know what needs to be modeled and we know why it has to be modeled, which is the use cases. The next thing is obviously to load the data into the model. So that is something that is another key roadblock, because if we just let people to create everything from scratch in Enterprise Architect, it could also take a while. So what we have done is to make it easy. We have built Excel templates based on the meta model and all the attributes that we have captured in a meta model, so that even if you populate a sample set of data in that Excel, we could import it and show you how it really looks, or how it presents itself as a report or as a dashboard, which can then be presented to your stakeholders or the intended users of the system. And then with their buy-in, you could capture more data, you could extend it further as well. So that's the idea. So you could either start from an Excel or source from external systems. As I said, this is a possibility, but in our shortest path to success, we wouldn't touch this. And just to give you a quick idea of the Excel spreadsheet. So let me just open the Excel spreadsheet as well so that we could see what is in it. Again, whatever we have done is just based on the agreed meta model. So there is stakeholders, owners, projects, services, domains, subdomains, applications, and integrations between applications. An application has all the metadata that we have shortlisted to be important for our stakeholders. You can add to it, you can remove these, that's up to you. But this is easily configurable and extendable because we share the entire source to you as well. You could make the changes to get from 0 to such a configuration is 80% of the work. The remaining 10% fine tuning can always be done. So that's what we have done. So there's model harvesting spreadsheets and model templates to show you where to import these as well. And all the profiles that are required to import this has also been packaged in the accelerator. So it's pretty much we are trying to reduce any technical effort from your side to get to the state that we are envisaging for you. And the last thing, as I mentioned, is the viewpoints automation. So what we mean by viewpoints automation is, like, if I have all the applications in place, we have built in some automation using what we call a model add-in that will generate these diagrams in no time. Of course, you may want to do some minor fine tunings to these diagrams like I'm doing here, but all these diagrams were auto-generated using the model add-in that's also part of the accelerator. So essentially what we have done, we have defined a meta model, we have defined all the configurations, we have defined a loading utility, and then we have also automated diagrams. So essentially a good part of the modeling exercise is already in place. And when we say modeling exercise, we also have the elements, connectors, tagged values, and everything that goes with it already loaded to the enterprise architect repository. And the last thing that we want to look at are the reports and dashboards that will help us deliver all this information to the intended stakeholders via Prolaborate dashboards. So let me just go through a few of them, and I'm going to relate it to the actual business interest that we started from. So for example, I would like to manage the life cycle of all my applications and understand how this transforms over a period of time. And that's exactly where we need an application roadmap. And this application roadmap lays out all my applications in one flat page, and it has all the life cycle statuses, like, that this application goes through, and the key times, or the the years or time that this transition happens. And this is not a made up slide, so I'm going to just click to navigate to a live published Prolaborate repository. So it's all based on a live EA model. These dashboards are working, so you could just see when the applications are in go live state, active state, sunset state. So you could see this is the current state today, and in 2027 what's expected to be the statuses, and all these are driven off and live and breathing EA repository with elements based on Archimate and connectors and things like that. So this is one of the deliverables. And the next thing, the most popular one, the Gartner's time methodology, kind of classifying your applications based on functional fit and business fit. Again, I am not here to suggest how to calculate your business fit or your functional fit. That's something maybe then tomorrow's webinar may show, or there are plenty of resources that will show you how to do it. But when you have a data, if you could plug it into this framework, what is the result that you could get? So you want to classify this as tolerate, invest, migrate, and eliminate based on functional fits and technical fit. And that's also a real-time chart that updates itself every time the data gets modified. So these are actual applications that kind of that is shown here. So I could actually click on this application, understand its details, maybe do some changes to it if you have the permissions to do it, but it's all driven from a living and breathing EA repository. So it's one dashboard which presents all these visualizations, and these gets updated on a real-time basis. So I'm just going to show you, I'm just going through one by one, but this is all coming from one single dashboard, which is part of the accelerator. So as you import the data, something like this will be loaded for you automatically. So the next thing is the most popular landscapes. So if I want to view my applications grouped by capabilities or domains or any other metrics, so that I could slice and dice it and understand the ones that are more relevant to me, that's where a landscape will come into picture. So if I switch to my dashboard, this is a landscape. So let me just zoom into the landscape to show you that this is a domain-based landscape. So application domain, application subdomain, and the actual applications, and the applications are highlighted based on application type in this scenario. So application type could be a platform application or a web-based application. However, that's not it. These are dynamic charts introduced in Prolaborate 5, which will give you an option to toggle the metadata that you want to apply. So application type, I want to switch it to, let's say, data classification. So I'm just switching to data classification. Now I'll be able to understand which of these domains have sensitive data, which ones have restricted, which ones have internal data, which ones have confidential data. So you could just view the applications based on any lens that is of interest to you. So if I want to quickly switch to hosting type to understand how are my domains going in terms of my cloud migration plan. So how many domains still have on-premise applications and what is the plan for it? So that kind of business specific queries could easily be answered when we present the data in a form like this. But the underlying information has to be in the model and it has to be consistent, and that's why this entire accelerator is very important. So that's the landscape. And then comes the inventory. So inventory is very important because to present your applications in a way that users could easily understand or update is also very important. So here I'm looking at the inventory, application inventory as user one. So it's Nizam, and there are certain fields being shown to me. So I am acting as application manager. So I would like to understand my application type, criticality, environment, vendor, projects, and services. And these are given to me. However, let's say I'm logging in to the same portal as Dave, as another user who is from the project management team, let's say. If he looks at the same view, the amount of details that is shown to him and the type of connectors that is shown to him is entirely different. Here, Dave is looking at Outlook and hosting type and life cycles and management strategy, organization, stakeholders, and owner, which is entirely different to what Nizam is seeing. So that's that role specific way to present your data to the users is also something that's really useful. And out of the data that you're showing, you want to decentralize updates, and Prolaborate will allow you to decentralize updates because I could define a very granular permission to say this role can update the vendor, and he or she cannot update environment type, cannot update criticality, cannot update application type, but can update the vendor, or he or she could help me to map my application to projects, map my application to consume services. And when I say mapping, we are essentially talking about creating and deleting or managing connectors in Enterprise Architect. But a business user would least be bothered about drawing a connector. That's an architect's responsibility, but we need the business people to give us that mapping, and they could easily do it through Prolaborate by just unchecking this or checking something else, which will delete a connector and create a connector for them in the EA model. And even furthermore, you could even enable inline edit so people could just update it as if they're updating an Excel spreadsheet. So you will have all the data, all the metadata included for you, and it's also governed. So I'm able to update a vendor, but I will not be able to update environment because I've got that kind of a permission set up. I can only update the name and vendor, but I cannot update environment. So it's a fully integrated environment where there's role specific access and permissions so that they could only update what you want them to update. But why is this important again? So it's one thing to build a model, but the other thing is to maintain it. And that's where the role specific view of applications is really important. Again, this is coming straight from your EA models as well. And if I keep going, there are things like a completely dynamic chart. So total cost of ownership, for example, is a very sought after view. And I could just define one chart for each of the business queries. So I don't have to give them multiple dimensions for that chart. So here, total cost of ownership, I've built it based on data classification. So I know how much am I spending on applications that have confidential data. But however, if the user wants to change it from data classification to something else, let's say hosting type, and he or she wants to understand how much am I spending on on-premise applications or PaaS applications, it's just a matter of changing one to another. So you have the entire set of metadata automatically shown for you. Here it's like, which applications are in the divest, justify, migrate, optimize, resolve, unknown status, and you could clearly see which ones are costing what. So that kind of dynamic charts is another thing that people really look for. So you could just apply a different lens and just understand the underlying data very quickly. And these are not just charts being shown to you. A click on this will take you to the exact set of results that matches your criteria. So I just clicked on the hybrid applications. So it's loaded all the applications that are in hybrid status, and if I click on it, my specific view is shown to me. So it's kind of seamlessly integrated, like role specific views driven by charts and visualizations. So these are like some of the end results that we want to show. And the last but not the least is the cards, which is to give you a very quick snapshot of like a summary or a percentage or a key repeated value of your underlying like application inventory. So if I want to understand what is the status outlook for, like, what is the most predominant outlook status in my application inventory, you could see it's migrate. So all these are dynamically calculated and given to the users as a quick chart or a card. So these kind of insights is something that will really help business users understand what's behind, and those kind of visualizations is what we want to achieve as a end result. So just going back to summarize, what we need is these final results, which is going to help us answer business queries. But to get here requires a systematic approach. And we as consultants, we've been helping teams get here through like 10 to 12 weeks of efforts to build all these bits and pieces. But from a Spark system standpoint, what we have tried to do is to build this as an accelerator so that you as a user could skip those complex steps and get to a result. So you may ask, I've already got an established architecture practice. I've got a meta model. I'm doing things already. Doesn't matter. Like as long as we can, or you can yourself look at it, see what has been done in these bits and pieces, and try to map your approach to this as well. Like these are, in my opinion, almost mandatory. Maybe not a data loading utility, maybe not an add-in, but a proper meta model that you understand and the configuration that is based on your meta model, in my opinion, is absolutely essential to get consistent models. And dashboards is your friend to success, to show to the end users. So even if you have an existing practice, that should not be a problem. You should be able to map your existing practice with what is suggested in this framework and see if you could reap the benefits as well. But for new users, if you want to just get started, all you need to do is to spend out a few days to populate a sample set of data that is specific to your organization in an Excel template, and everything else kind of will happen for you so that you will be able to have a meaningful conversation with someone who will be interested in those. So that's kind of what I wanted to demonstrate. And just to give you a heads up, we are now trying to do a similar approach for business capability management. And the next in our list will be a technology portfolio management or a requirements management or a systems engineering. Each one of these use cases requires a careful approach to be defined, which can be shared to the users, and then they can extend it from there. APM is just one of those, or the first attempt that we have taken. You could download the accelerator that includes everything that I stated from this page. We'll share this link in the in post the session in your Slack or in the chat as well. But a click on this will take you to the website where you could just download the entire accelerator pack, and it gives you step-by-step explanation of why everything was added in the first place, what is the rationale behind it, how you could modify it. So everything is kind of open source. There's no hidden cost behind it. It's just to give an approach to help our teams get started and deliver value. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show. But I think, yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to show.